Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be out here in the 18th edition of OcuHealthscapes. Keeping on with the tradition, this time we are going to have another interesting session where we are going to discuss about the various deliberations in the field of occupational health and well-being, which have happened over the last month. I think, considering the fact that time is precious, and we have with us our esteemed speaker, Dr. Rajiv Jain. I think we'll begin the session. Let me first of all share a few words about our beloved Dr. Rajiv. Dr. Rajiv is presently the Senior Vice President of Association of Occupational and Environmental Health, Delhi. He has had a distinguished career across the railways. He has been the senior consultant of health in Indian Railways, more than 40 years of experience in hospital and health administration. He has been an eminent fellow of several associations, including Indian Public Health, Indian Association of Occupational Health, AUOHD. To his credit, he has published more than 145 scientific papers in various fields. He has also been a member of a core group of guidelines for medical preparedness, National Disaster Management Authority. He has been a thesis assessor in hospital administration. In addition to all of the other eminent and the prominent things which he has done, he has also been an orator at several orations, including the L&T oration, CKR oration in Karnataka, in Washcon, as a part of the Pune branch, Indian Oil. I think the list is so huge that I think I'll not be able to do justice to all of the achievements which he has. But more importantly to me, he's one of the people who actually, to me, is actually an encyclopedia on the subject. His passion and his interest in the subject is second to none. Without further ado, I'll invite Dr. Rajiv to take us through today's proceedings. Over to you, Dr. Rajiv.
Thank you, Dr. Ashish, for the nice words you've spoken about me. But more important is that today, more than any kind of knowledge, all knowledge seems to be failing in the challenge of infectious diseases and climate change and environment. And the way the workplace is changing because of these aspects is phenomenal. And today the science and all the management skills of all the people in the world is faced with huge challenge of infectious diseases, environmental challenge, and how to manage the workplace. So with that context in mind, today's OcuHealthscapes would like to concentrate on certain important issues at the workplace which impact the occupational health and environmental health of mankind, whether it is in our local place, whether it is in the country or in the region or in the world, or for that matter in the universe, with our earth as a planet where human beings and all other lives reside. So today's episode of OcuHealthscapes will talk about tobacco harms the environment. We shall talk about NFHS 5 survey and how pandemic's employment has been impacted. We shall also take a look at how we can understand the fall in India's fertility rate. WHO sounds alarm on monkeypox cases rise globally. We shall have a look what has been the rise. And in that context, we shall talk about should India be worried about monkeypox. We shall also have a look at understanding the latest global surge in COVID-19 infections. As you know, new areas in the world are facing COVID-19 infections. And in India's fight against COVID-19, CoWIN platform is now being thought of for universal immunization program utilization. India is also preparing detailed guidelines and SOPs for testing medical devices in the future. India will be launching National Hydrogen Mission within about 2 months. 2 months, we shall also make a review of that. There was a Lancet study recently where only 1/3 have blood sugar under control in India was found. We shall also have a look at an article in Art and Occupation with Paul Klee. Also, we shall talk a little about Only One Earth with 5th of June 2022, having the World Environment Day. Recently, ICO made a statement at the 75th World Health Assembly from 22nd to 28th of this month. World Health Assembly was held. This was the 75th World Assembly of the World Health Organization. And also a little about OccuCon 2023, which is going to be held in January 2023 in New Delhi. So these all topics we shall talk about in today's issue or episode of OccuHealthscapes. So let's begin with the beginning. The World No Tobacco Day is on next Tuesday, that is 31st of May 2022. And this year, we shall be talking about something which has never been talked earlier, how tobacco impacts environment. So let's begin with a short video, and then we can talk a little more about how tobacco harms the environment. And it's glaring how widely tobacco impacts the environment and our health thereby.
Come and see. I need to show you something. A product that is destroying our planet. To make space for it, millions of trees are cut down. To grow it, chemicals poison the land, the soil, the water. To produce it, the air becomes saturated with toxins. And when it's discarded, our environment is polluted in ways that we can't afford. Tobacco costs us more than 8 million lives every year. It also costs us 600 million trees, 200,000 hectares of land, 84 million tons of CO2, 22 billion tons of water. Tobacco is not only poisoning people, it's poisoning our planet.
So you've seen in a 1-minute video how tobacco is harming our planet, and it is harming to a great extent. We shall make a scientific review of this issue. On 31st of May 2022, there shall be World No Tobacco Day. Could we have the next slide, please? Tobacco harms the environment. Tobacco growing, manufacturing, and use poison our water, soil, beaches, and city streets with chemicals, toxic waste, cigarette butts, including microplastics, and e-cigarette waste. Don't fall for the tobacco industry's attempt to try and distract from its environmental harms by greenwashing their products through donations to sustainability initiatives and reporting on environmental standards they often set themselves. Also, make the tobacco industry clean up their mess. Tobacco industry is making profit by destroying the environment and needs to be held accountable for the environmental destruction and needs to pay for the waste and damages, including to recover the cost of collecting these wastes. Quit tobacco to save our planet. Every cigarette smoked or tobacco product used wastes precious resources that our existence depends on. Quit tobacco for your health and the health of our planet. Tobacco smoke contributes to higher air pollution levels and contains 3 kinds of greenhouse gases. Help tobacco farmers switch to sustainable crops. Governments and policymakers should support tobacco farmers to switch to alternative more sustainable livelihoods to reduce the environmental impact of tobacco growing, curing, and manufacturing, while continue to implement tobacco control measures. 200,000 hectares of land cleared annually for tobacco agriculture and curing. 200,000. 3.7 liters of water is used to make only one cigarette. 3.7 liters of water. 84 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions from tobacco production. That's equivalent to 280,000 rocket launches to outer space. No tobacco means less microplastic and toxins poisoning our oceans. No tobacco is equal to a healthier planet and healthier people. Did you know a smoker produces 5 tons of carbon dioxide in their lifetime? Tobacco is the most littered item on the planet. Do you think the tobacco industry should be held responsible for cleaning up this mess? Because they have created this mess. So we should think of initiating effective voice raising and efforts, relentless efforts for ensuring that tobacco is consumed in a manner which leads to its total deletion from the world. So the general public should give tobacco users an extra reason to quit. Quitting tobacco benefits your health and the environment. Support policy action around ban on single-use plastics, which includes cigarette butts, smokeless tobacco pouches, and electronic waste. Third, raise awareness of the tobacco industry's greenwashing tactics. General public should support governments on additional levies and taxes on industry to protect the environment. Youth and future generations should advocate for 100% tobacco-free schools to protect children and youth from exposure to direct, second-hand, and third-hand smoke. Youth and future generations should start or join a movement to protect the environment, raise awareness about the environmental impact of tobacco, and sensitize the public, in particular the youth. Youth and future generations should support the reduction of chemicals, including the carbon footprint, to protect the younger generation for ill effects of environmental tobacco waste, and also reduce the number of tobacco retail stores. Ministries and policymakers should impose the EPR policy principle on the tobacco industry to hold them accountable for the cost of cleaning up TPW. Impose an environmental tax levy on the tobacco manufacturers, distributors, and the consumer across the supply chain for carbon emissions, air pollution, and other environmental costs. Also, implement tobacco control, that is, empower measures to minimize the environmental impact of tobacco. Also, support tobacco farmers to switch to alternative sustainable livelihoods in line with Article 17 and 18 of the WHO FCTC. Advise governments on how to leverage the COP of international climate in Cairo in November 2022 to collaborate and advance the tobacco control agenda in line with World No Tobacco Day. Now, NGOs and civil society have an important role to play. They can raise awareness on the environmental impact of tobacco across the life cycle, from cultivation, production, distribution, use, and waste. They can also showcase the tobacco waste problem in public spaces and communities. They can also raise awareness of the benefits of switching to different crops and how it is linked to tobacco control more broadly. They can also advocate for national bans on single-use plastics, expose tobacco industry tactics and efforts to greenwash its reputation and products by marketing themselves as environmentally friendly. Tobacco farmers should switch to sustainable and environmentally friendly crops, providing a greener return on investment in terms of health and wealth. Academia and intergovernmental organizations, including United Nations agencies and development banks, should collect data on water use, deforestation, and the lethal and environmentally degrading chemicals in tobacco products and the environmental harm of these components on soil, drinking water, human and animal health. Estimate the total impact of tobacco product waste as well as the total environmental impact of one tobacco product. Raise awareness of projects in tobacco growing countries. For example, in Kenya, where hundreds of farmers successfully switched to alternative crops, as well as deforestation and climate change projects in East Africa. Raise awareness of the linkages between environmental impact of tobacco and health outcomes, linking it to adverse developmental outcomes. Remind stakeholders that accelerated implementation of the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, that is FCTC, is an SDG 3A target. How does tobacco industry destroy our forest? An estimated 1.5 billion hectares of mainly tropical forests have been lost worldwide since the 1970s due to tobacco, contributing to up to 20% of annual greenhouse gas increase. Trees are cut down to clear land for tobacco farming. In addition, wood is burned for the curing of tobacco leaves after harvest. It takes approximately one entire tree to make 300 cigarettes. Approximately 200,000 hectares of land is cleared annually for tobacco growing and curing. Tobacco farming accounts for about 5% of the total national deforestation, disproportionately affecting tobacco growing regions of the world, including Southern Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, South America, and the Caribbean. How does tobacco farming harm our soil? Fertile land that could be used to grow nutritious crops is used for tobacco. The soil depletion caused by tobacco growing further contributes to food insecurity and nutritional challenges. Rehabbing the soil after tobacco farming is costly. Based on data collected in 2014, it would cost $20.6 million to reverse the negative effects on soil in Bangladesh caused by 1 year of tobacco farming. Desertification attributable to tobacco growing is now being seen within many countries, including Brazil, India, Jordan, and Cuba. How does the growth and use of tobacco affect water supplies? The entire life cycle of a single cigarette requires approximately 3.7 liters of water. This includes the growing, manufacturing, distribution, use, and disposal. The average smoker could save up to 74 liters of water per day if they quit smoking. Tobacco growing depletes water tables. The cultivation stage of tobacco alone requires the same amount of water that an individual would need for an entire year. Based on the number of cigarettes produced in 2015 in Brazil, the third largest producer of tobacco, 263 billion liters of water was utilized to produce its water annual supply. Given that the average person drinks about 700 liters of water per year, if all this water were to be converted to drinking water, it would be able to hydrate and approximately 3.7 million people, which is about the entire population of its capital, that is Brasilia. It is now well established that cigarette filters, that is butts, are among the top most polluting and toxic substances found in water bodies. It takes a cigarette butt approximately 10 years to decompose, allowing time for nicotine and chemicals to leach into surrounding ecosystems. A study from the EPA concluded that when cigarette butts are soaked in fresh water for 96 hours, approximately half the fish died. How does tobacco pollute our air? To produce a single cigarette, 14 grams of carbon dioxide is emitted throughout its life cycle. Tobacco production contributes almost 84 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions annually. That is equivalent to 280,000 rockets launching into outer space. Tobacco smoke contributes to higher air pollution levels and contains 3 kinds of greenhouse gases, that is carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxides, which pollutes indoor and outdoor environments. How does tobacco contribute to littering? Globally, the approximate weight of waste generated annually from the overall tobacco life cycle is approximately 25 million metric tons. Almost all commercial cigarettes have a cellulose acetate filter attached. This additive is poorly degradable and a source of microplastics contamination of the environment. Approximately 4.5 trillion cigarettes are discarded in the environment every year. Surveys of littering behavior have found that approximately 65% of smokers discard cigarette butts improperly. For example, on pavements, beaches, etc. There are over 7,000 chemicals released into the environment from use of a cigarette, 70 of which are known carcinogens. How does e-waste contribute to environment pollution? E-waste in general is already an overwhelming problem, with 99 billion pounds discarded annually, according to 2017 global estimates. The disposal of e-cigarette cartridges, batteries represent a major environmental concern. Most plastic e-cigarette cartridges are not reusable or recyclable and end up in gutters, streets, and waterways. Improper disposal of these products is extremely harmful to the environment, as they are made up of materials that are not biodegradable, such as metal coils, plastic, atomizers, batteries, and microcontroller chips. In addition, many products are single-use. How does smokeless tobacco use contribute to environmental pollution? The indiscriminate use of plastic sachets, pouches has become a new environmental concern in several countries where smokeless tobacco, forms of tobacco are such as gutka, pan masala, etc. are packaged and sold. The environmental, human, and ecological damage of plastic-based materials, especially to marine biology, is well documented. The problem with using plastic pouches for packaging smokeless forms of tobacco was initially limited to South Asian economies, but in the last decade or so, it has become a global concern. This is due to aggressive marketing and introduction of gutka and pan masala into new markets in both Asia and Africa. How does tobacco's environmental impact affect our health? Let's look at how it affects farmers' health. A tobacco farmer who plants, cultivates, and harvests tobacco may absorb as much nicotine per day as found in 50 cigarettes, 50. Green tobacco sickness, that is GTS, is a form of nicotine poisoning that occurs in about 1 in 4 farmers. Tobacco farmers may also experience increased concentration of aluminum and arsenic due to exposure to pesticides. Chronic exposure to certain pesticides results in several health effects, including birth defects, benign and malignant tumors, genetic changes, blood disorders, neurological disorders, and endocrine disruption. Let's look at children's health, how tobacco's environmental impact is on children's health. Often, children work on tobacco farms, and they are particularly vulnerable given that their body weight is relative to the proportion of nicotine absorbed through their skin from handling tobacco leaves. Youth tobacco farmers may experience increased risk of early kidney dysfunction as well as higher prevalence of smoking. Let's look at women's health. Women are disproportionately affected by the harmful effects of tobacco farming as they face a higher risk of infertility and reproductive issues. What are the humanistic and economic burdens of tobacco use? Tobacco use is associated with substantial humanistic and economic burden. Smoking is associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease, respiratory illness, cancer, diabetes, hypertension, and more. Smoking tobacco in indoor spaces is a major contributor to air pollution, as it releases toxicants into the air, increasing risk of exposure of bystanders. Secondhand smoking is responsible for the premature death of 1.2 million people globally every year, in addition to cardiovascular and respiratory diseases. Based on results from a 2018 study, the total global economic cost of smoking from both health expenditures and productivity losses is equivalent in magnitude to 1.8% of the world's annual gross domestic product, that is GDP. Of about 40% of this cost occurred in developing countries. What tactics does the tobacco industry use to greenwash their reputation? Deceitful tactics are used by the tobacco industry to greenwash its reputation and portray itself as a sustainable and eco-friendly industry. These tactics are used to hide the fact that tobacco farming, production, consumption, and use are detrimental to both the surrounding environment as well as the health of farmers and tobacco users. For example, the intent of the industry's data is to mislead the public into minimizing the effects of tobacco growing on the environment and communities of countries worldwide. The marketing and eco-labeling of cigarettes as natural and organic makes tobacco users believe the products are not harmful to them. Tobacco companies fund schools, health systems, environmental and disaster relief organizations, and cleanup of tobacco product-based programs, particularly in low and middle income countries, to be recognized for contributions to society. How countries address the problem? Under Article 18 of the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, parties agree to have due regard to the protection of the environment and the health of the persons in relation to the environment in respect of tobacco cultivation and manufacture within their respective territories. Countries can impose the Extended Producer Responsibility Policy Principle, EPRP principle, to mitigate the problem of tobacco and e-cigarette product waste, and to hold tobacco and related industries accountable for cleanup and waste disposal costs. Government can impose an environmental tax levy on tobacco manufacturers, distributors, and consumers for carbon emissions, air pollutants, and other environmental costs caused during the supply chain of tobacco products. Countries recognize the use of single-use non-biodegradable plastics in cigarette filters and other nicotine products, and should take appropriate action to phase out the use of plastics in nicotine and tobacco products. Farmers can be supported through government incentives to participate in crop substitution by growing more sustainable crops that will benefit the livelihood of the community. Now, after looking at how tobacco is harming the environment, let's look at another aspect. National Family Health Survey 5 was conducted by Government of India. It has also shown some data on how the pandemic's employment has been impacted. Did the COVID-19 pandemic have a lasting impact on employment in India? There is no official data to answer this question in a comprehensive manner at the moment. The latest annual report of the Periodic Labor Force Survey, that is PLFS, it is the official source of employment statistics in India, is available for the July 2019 to June 2020 period. It does show a sharp increase in unemployment during the period of the 68-day-long nationwide lockdown, which began on March 25. But what happened to labor markets after the lockdown was lifted? While quarterly employment report of PLFS are available up to December 2021, they only cover urban labor markets and do not have as much information as the annual reports. It is in this void that the recently released unit level data of the 5th round of the National Family and Health Survey, that is NFHS, it was conducted between July 19 and May 21, emerges as a useful proxy for the pandemic's impact on employment. Unit level data from NFHS shows that the economic pain in labor markets did not decrease enough with the removal of lockdown restrictions. But first, a caveat on NFHS employment numbers. Because NFHS is not focused on employment alone, there is a qualitative difference between employment statistics available in NFHS and PLFHS. It is important to list these differences upfront and the resultant limitations of NFHS data to make different inferences about the state of labor markets in India. 1. The criteria for being considered employed is much more liberal in NFHS than PLFS. NFHS asks whether a person worked or had worked but was on leave in the week before the survey, or the person worked at any time in the year before. To be considered employed in the past week in PLFS, a person should have had work for at least 1 hour on at least one day of the week. To be considered employed in the year before, the person should have had work for at least 1 month. 2. NFHS only seeks responses on employment-related questions from men and women in the age group 15 to 54 years and 15 to 49 years, respectively, while PLFS asks this question of all members of the household. This has an impact on the total sample for employment in NFHS and PLFS. In 2019-21, NFHS 1,01,839 men and 1,08,785 women gave responses on the employment question. The 2019-20 PLFS had a much bigger sample, that is 2,13,063 men and 2,05,170 women. 3. Unlike PLFS, which survey part of the country in each quarter, the NFHS sampling is spread across the entire period of the survey and therefore prone to more seasonal contamination. These differences, however, do not make NFHS employment numbers worthless. A comparison of the latest PLFS and NFHS shows that NFHS overestimates the share of working people, but not very drastically. NFHS data does suggest a lasting adverse impact of the pandemic on labor markets. One way to overcome the seasonal contamination problem in the NFHS is to compare club districts which were surveyed before and after the lockdown and compare the change in their employment indicators with the previous round, which was conducted in 2015-16. So unit level data analysis to make the three such district group, that is district surveyed completely before March 20, district surveyed partly before and partly after March 20, and district surveyed completely after March 20, to make this comparison. To be sure, no district was canvassed between April 20 and September 2020, and the NFHS only resumed from October 2020 onwards, by when the lockdown restrictions had been largely removed. So when we say after March 2020, it automatically means after September 2020. A simple comparison of headline employment numbers currently working and who usually work all year shows the biggest proportional fall in male employment for the district surveyed after March 2020. For women, the degree of increase in employment was less in districts surveyed after the pandemic than in those surveys before. To be sure, an increase in women's work participation is not surprising. It increased by a bigger degree compared to men, even between 2017-18 and 2019-20. This calculation has excluded respondents who reported working seasonally or occasionally, as it would not be uncommon for them to not be working when the survey was conducted. NFHS data also shows a shift towards farming and manual work. For men, who constitute a majority of the workforce and largely drive the overall labor market trends, the NFHS data show a change which is similar to what is seen in the PLFS data, a shift towards agriculture. The share of men employed in agriculture work increased in the districts surveyed after the pandemic in NFHS, while this share decreased in the districts surveyed before the pandemic. A somewhat similar trend, more increase in post-pandemic district than pre-pandemic ones, is seen for share of men doing manual work. To a lesser degree, these trends were also true for women. Now, we take a look at understanding the India's fertility rate. India's total fertility rate, that is TFR, falling below replacement levels, made the headlines when summary findings of the fifth round of the National Family and Health Survey were released in November 24 last year. TFR is the average number of children a woman is expected to have during her childbearing years. Simply speaking, it is the average number of children in a nuclear family. TFR falling below the replacement level 2.1, India's TFR fell below 2.2 in NFHS 4 to 2 in NFHS 5, means that a country's population will not grow in the long term. What factors have led to this development? So this analysis is based on the unit level data from NFHS, which can help in answering this question. TFR decline is the largest among high fertility groups. NFHS data also allows us to track changes in TFR by religion, social group, place of residence, and asset class of respondent. A simple comparison of the NFHS 4 and NFHS 5 data shows that the decline is the sharpest for women belonging to groups which had the highest TFR in the previous round. Women from the poorest asset quantile, that is bottom 20%, show the steepest decline in TFR in percentage terms, whereas those in the richest have actually seen a marginal increase. The trend follows the same pattern when it comes to social groups and religion, that is scheduled tribes and Muslims show the most decline. To be sure, just as in the case of different wealth quantiles, there was a wide variation in TFR between different social and religious groups in the latest round of the NFHS 2. These numbers should be read with the fact that declining TFR is not a new thing in India. India's TFR was 3.4 in the 1992-93 round of NFHS. This fell to 2.8 in the 1998-99, 2.7 in 2005-06, 2.2 in 2015-16, and 2 in 2019-21. This trend of declining fertility is also seen in sample registration survey, that is SRS reports, which also show similar levels of TFR as NFHS. In SRS, TFR was 2.8 in 2006, 2.3 in 2015, and 2.1 in 2019. But this is not necessarily true for states that had high TFR in 2015-16. While all social, religious, and economic groups that had higher TFR in 2015-16 have shown a bigger decline in percentage terms than those who had lower TFR, the same cannot be said of all states of India. Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Assam, for example, have shown bigger proportional decline in TFR than in Bihar, although they had much lower TFR than Bihar in 2015-16 itself. The changes in ASFR are as interesting as changes in TFR. ASFR stands for age-specific fertility rates. TFR is essentially a derived concept which depends on what is called age-specific fertility rate, that is AFSR. AFSR measures the number of childbirths per 1,000 women in a given age group in the previous 3 years. TFR is just a summation of AFSR for the 5 different age groups. A comparison of AFSR across various NFHS rounds shows a pattern of delayed motherhood in India. What explains these changes in AFSR? Looking at the latest NFHS data can offer some answers. College education is the biggest factor in bringing down AFSR in the 2024 age group, which makes the largest contribution to TFR in India. College-educated women are also more likely to give birth to children at a later age, as can be seen from their AFSRs being higher than those with lower educational levels between 25 to 39 years. This also means that increasing the legal age of marriage for women to 21 years may not have much impact on the nutritional status or education and job prospects of women. Childbearing, as it is concentrated in the 20-24 age group unless women are seeking higher education. Son preference drives TFR, but it is not the only factor. Latest NFHS data once again confirms the fact that son preference is among the biggest reasons for high fertility levels in India. More than 80% of women covered in the survey said that they wanted at least one son, while 15% wanted more sons than daughters. A comparison of TFR levels by son preference shows a strong positive correlation. However, it will be wrong to argue that son preference is the only factor driving high TFR levels in India. This is best seen in difference between TFR levels among various socioeconomic groups with similar son preference. Now, we turn our attention to another infectious disease showing its head where it has never been seen in the past. WHO sounds alarm as monkeypox cases rise globally. With over 90 laboratory confirmed cases and 28 suspected cases of monkeypox, the World Health Organization is expanding its surveillance in countries where the disease is not typically found. What is monkeypox? Monkeypox is a viral zoonosis, that is a virus transmitted to humans from animals with symptoms very similar to those seen in the past in smallpox patients, although it is clinically less severe. Who are its natural hosts? Various animal species have been identified as susceptible to monkeypox virus, including rope squirrels, tree squirrels, Gambian pouched rats, dormice, non-human primates, and other species. Where it is found? Monkeypox occurs in Central and West Africa, often in proximity to tropical rainforests. Now, we see the incubation period of from infection to onset of symptoms of monkeypox is usually from 6 to 13 days, but can range from 5 to 21 days. The infection can be divided into 2 periods, that is invasion period which lasts from 0 to 5 days, characterized by fever, intense headache, swelling of the lymph nodes, back pain, muscle aches, and intense lack of energy. Lymphadenopathy is a distinctive feature of monkeypox compared to other diseases that may initially appear similar, that is chickenpox, measles, or smallpox. Second is skin eruption, usually begins within 1 to 3 days of appearance of fever. The rash tends to be more concentrated on the face and extremities. 3 to 6% of cases led to death in endemic countries. In most cases, the symptoms subside on their own within a few weeks, but in some individuals, they can lead to medical complications and even death. Complications include skin infections, pneumonia, confusion, and eye infections, leading to loss of vision. Who is at risk? Newborns, children, and people with immune deficiencies may be at risk of more serious symptoms and death. What is the treatment? Since the symptoms often resolve on their own, there is no need of treatment in most cases. Experts advise taking care of rashes, mouth rinses for sores, and eye drops. They warn against use of products containing cotton. And also, vaccine immunoglobulin VIG may be recommended for severe cases. Tecovirimat, an antiviral drug developed to treat smallpox, was approved for the treatment of monkeypox in January 2022, but is not widely available as yet. Is there a vaccine? The vaccines available for prevention of smallpox also provide some protection against monkeypox. A newer vaccine that was developed for smallpox, that is the MVA-BN, was approved in 2019 for use in preventing monkeypox, but is not yet widely available. How to prevent? Experts advise self-isolation in case a person develops symptoms and covering skin lesions. Other measures are wear masks, avoid skin-to-skin contact, use disposable gloves, and wash hands with soap or alcohol-based hand rub. Previous outbreaks were in 1970, first case in humans in the Democratic Republic of Congo in a 9-year-old boy. In 1996-97, an outbreak was reported in Democratic Republic of Congo with a lower case fatality ratio. In 2003, first reported outbreak was seen outside of Africa in the US. The outbreak led to over 70 cases. Since 2017, Nigeria has experienced a large outbreak with over 200 confirmed cases. Now, before going into this topic of should India be worried about monkeypox, we listen to the World Health Organization through a short statement by the head of emergency medical relief, Maria Van Kerkhove, through this video that is going to be played now. Let's listen to her, what she says. She has been the face of COVID-19 till now, but she is now the face of monkeypox as well. Could we have that video, please?
You have a couple of questions for us, but we generally aren't answering media questions through this platform. This is really for the public. And Dr. Van Kerkhove, I want to go to you next. What is WHO doing about this? We've touched on a few things, but can you give us the overview of what WHO does, not just in a situation like this, but in this situation?
I can, and then I'm going to ask Rosamond to supplement because there's quite a lot of activities that are ongoing. I mean, one of the things we really need to do right now, I mean, we're working with partners. We'll always work with partners and scientists and technical colleagues all over the world, but we have some major areas of focus that we are working on right now, and we are working with member states to achieve these things. One is we have to raise awareness about what monkeypox is, what it isn't, and we have to expand surveillance. So particularly in countries that aren't used to seeing monkeypox, we need to equip ministries and governments and countries, health clinics, to be able to recognize what monkeypox is and to ensure that people who may be suspected as having monkeypox get the appropriate clinical care. We want to stop human-to-human transmission. We can do this in the non-endemic countries, and this is really critical because we're in a situation where we can use public health tools of early identification, isolation of cases, supported isolation of cases, talking with communities, listening to communities, engaging with communities to be part of the solution. This is not about WHO telling the world what to do. It's about working with communities to say, how do we come up with solutions that fit in this. But I do want to reiterate that this is a containable situation and we can stop human-to-human transmission. We also want to protect frontline workers. Anyone that's out there that's taking samples to do testing or to care for individuals, we want to make sure that they have the right information, they have the right personal protective equipment, and we want to utilize all of the countermeasures that are in place. There are some antivirals, there are vaccines, but we have to utilize these most appropriately for those who are most at risk in an equitable fashion. And again, lastly, overarching is to advance our understanding about what monkeypox is. So we're going to be having a big global meeting around R&D, research from everything from the epidemiology all the way through diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines, and that'll be happening next week. But Rosamond can supplement that because there's so much other activities that are actually happening there.
Well, I think you've covered a lot of it.
So you've heard from the horse's mouth what is happening at the global center of World Health Organization with regard to monkeypox. Now let's take a look. Should India be worried about monkeypox? Till 26th of this month, the world had reported around 329 cases in 19 countries. 329 cases with United Kingdom reporting 90, Portugal reporting 58, and Canada reporting 23, and Spain reporting 84 cases. These are the 4 largest countries, that is United Kingdom 90, Spain 84, Portugal 58, and Canada 23. That is the latest. Next slide, please. What do we know about monkeypox? Monkeypox isn't new. It's a viral disease originating from animals such as rodents and primates, and is transmitted to people. It is found in Africa, mostly around tropical rainforest region. The first case of human monkeypox was detected in 1970 in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Clinical symptoms of virus look similar to those that are found in smallpox patients, but are less severe. There are 2 types of monkeypox virus. One is the West Africa type with case fatality ratio close to 1%. The other is the Congo Basin type, which exhibits greater human-to-human transmission and has a case fatality ratio as high as 10%. What challenges does the outbreak present? As on date, the WHO has reported as many as 92 lab-confirmed cases and 28 suspected cases in 12 countries, which is now, till date, has increased to 329 cases in 19 countries. The US, UK, Australia, Sweden, UK, Portugal, Canada. Public health experts say detection of monkeypox cases presents a new challenge, particularly as the world is still battling COVID-19. India's COVID preparedness appears to be under control, and thus there is not much reason to panic, according to experts. Meanwhile, WHO has alerted all countries to be vigilant. The health body expects more cases to be identified as surveillance expands in non-endemic countries. What happens to international travel? Public health experts do not recommend closing borders and banning international flights. Monkeypox is going to be a mild infection, and to date, no deaths have been reported, said scientists at the Indian Council of Medical Research. The rate of spread of infection is not of much concern. Thus, flight bans are not being considered as of now. What are the symptoms? The symptoms include fever with an unexplained acute rash all over the body. The virus primarily is transmitted from animals to human, but human-to-human transmission happens upon close contact with body fluids, wounds, internal mucosal surfaces, respiratory droplets, or contaminated objects. It can also be transmitted from women to their children and from infected women to fetus. Consumption of inadequately cooked meat or products from infected animals increases the risk. What is India's surveillance strategy? The Union Health Ministry has directed the National Center for Disease Control and ICMR to keep a close watch for monkeypox cases. Airports and ports are under active surveillance. Travelers from countries affected by monkeypox are especially checked. The immediate strategy is to rapidly identify cases, isolate, treat, and trace contacts. If there is a positive case, contact tracing should start immediately for all contacts over the previous 21 days. As of today, the National Institute of Virology, Pune, has not received any sample. Let's look at the latest global surge in COVID-19 infections now. Even the peak of global Omicron surge in the late January, daily cases of COVID-19 had been seeing a near consistent and rapid decline in the past 4 months. However, in the past week, the 7-day average of daily cases in the global level has again started rising. Which regions are seeing a resurgence of infections? Are the deaths rising again too? What role is the global vaccination drive playing in this? And here are 3 sets of charts that explain this. First, from the lowest point in months, global cases are rising again. The 7-day average of new indirect infections of COVID-19 across the world in the past week has touched 562,000, according to data collected by our World in Data. This is a minor increase, a little over 8% from what it was on May 8, when the average of 517,000 new cases were reported across the world. The May 8 figure, in fact, was the lowest level the global curve touched since mid-November, the data shows. The reason that a change in this statistic is significant is because this number dropped nearly steadily, with the exception of a minor blip in early March after the global peak of the Omicron wave towards the end of January. When it soared to nearly 3.4 million a day. From there on, as has been the case with Omicron surges seen in nearly every country, this number fell just as fast as it went up. Looking at these numbers by continent, we see that Europe has the biggest contributor to the global tally, accounting for a little over a third, that is 34.7% of all new cases reported in the past week. It is followed by Asia, which is the source of 28.6% of all cases in the world in the past week, and North America with 20.3% of all such cases. So where is this rise coming from? A closer look at countries, however, offers a better idea of where cases are rising. Nearly a fifth of all infections across the world in the past week can be traced to just one country, that is the United States, which for the first time in nearly 90 days, again reported an average of more than 1 lakh daily cases in the past week. In fact, in just 10 days, the case curve in the US has increased more than 40%, making it one of the fastest expanding outbreaks among major nations. The country that has seen the second highest infections in the world is Taiwan, which has reported 67,955 daily cases on average in the past week, data shows. What is alarming about the numbers from Taiwan, however, is the pace at which cases are growing. The case curve was just 19,733 infections a day just 10 days ago, capping a hopping 250% increase. It is followed by Germany, which has reported 50,900 new cases every day in the past week. Data from Germany, however, shows that the country is currently experiencing a strong post-Omicron contraction. This is why the case curve has contracted by 27% in the past 10 days. In the 4th and 5th spot are Australia and Japan, which have reported 52,000 and 36,000 daily cases on average in the past week, respectively. Cases have risen 24% and 28% in these two countries in the past 10 days, the data shows. A notable omission from this list is North Korea, which has only recently confirmed it is experiencing a massive COVID-19 outbreak for the first time in the 2 years, having reported close to 2 million cases just the past week, according to the local press. Due to the extreme opacity in the data emanating from the isolationist nation, it has been excluded from the global calculations. But daily cases remain below levels not seen since March 2020. But despite the resurgence of cases across the world, which has been starkly different in the past post-vaccinated world, has been how well deaths have been contained. In the past week, there have been an average of 1,633 deaths across the world every day. This is the lowest that this number has been in more than 2 years. The only time the world has seen fewer people die was before March 2020, when the pandemic was just finding its first footing in countries across the world. In fact, even during the Omicron surge, which saw cases soar to several times what previous records were, daily deaths never even came close to crossing the peak seen during the Delta wave. The reason that the latest surges have never been as fatal as the ones from the earliest surges from 2020 and early 2021 is largely due to two reasons. First, over the course of the 2 years of the pandemic, doctors across the world have perfected the treatment, medicines, and resources such as oxygen needed for treatment of the disease, and as such have been devising better ways for treatment. Second is the impact of vaccination. In each subsequent wave, the proportion of the people vaccinated across the world has been increasing. During the more fatal stages in 2020 and early 2021, no vaccine had been developed for the disease. So not a single person in the world had been vaccinated. As this coverage has increased, it has suppressed the fatality of COVID-19. This also offers us a real glimpse of how the world will eventually go on to live with the coronavirus disease. Surges will come up and go, but long countries focus on expanding vaccine coverage, which includes booster shots. Loss of life and livelihood will largely remain contained. Another important aspect which we will have a look is how CoWIN platform can now be utilized for the universal immunization program. The National Health Authority plans to use the CoWIN platform for the universal immunization program for vaccinated children and pregnant women against preventable diseases. The Chief Executive Officer of NHA, Mr. R.S. Sharma, said this. Given that only 10,000 private hospitals are part of Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, the government's focus is to increase their participation under the center's flagship health schemes. He added, ABPMJY adopting a zero tolerance approach towards fraud and abuse. 210 hospitals that engaged in unethical practices, including denial of treatment to scheme beneficiaries, have been removed, while approximately 50,000 suspect transactions were cancelled. The CoWIN platform has been able to scale rapidly with increasing pace of vaccination. What provisions are being made in CoWIN for the vaccination of children and adolescents? With a phased rollout of vaccination program, the CoWIN platform has scaled quickly in an agile manner. This is evident from the platform's multi-fold scale-up from 2 to 3 million vaccination daily during phases 1 and 2 to a global high of 25 million vaccination in a day during phase 3. There were multiple private and government applications among Arogya Setu, which have integrated with the APIs of CoWIN and provided vaccination registration services. From January, the policy for vaccination administration enabled the inclusion of adolescent population. Initially, it was for the age group 15 to 17, followed by the age group of 12 to 14. You already included school IDs as photo IDs, proofs, when the beneficiary doesn't have any other ID proofs. For those belonging to the 12 to 17 age group, Covaxin, Cobivax, Covovax have been approved and digitally enabled for seamless registrations and recording through CoWIN. Additionally, 6 members can be registered on one same mobile number, allowing parents to add their children to their registered CoWIN accounts. Furthermore, discussions are on to repurpose CoWIN platform to accommodate the universal immunization program for providing vaccination to children and pregnant mothers against preventable diseases. How have other countries shown any interest in adopting this technology? India decided to adopt a completely digital approach while planning its vaccination strategy. This helped people prove that they have been vaccinated, easing the renewal of socio-economic activities in a phased manner. A safe, secure, and trustworthy proof helped people establish when, where, and by whom they have been vaccinated. The digital approach also helped track the usage of vaccination and minimize wastage. India is providing the CoWIN platform free of cost to nations interested in adopting and customizing it. Over 140 countries attended the CoWIN Global Conclave to learn about this technology. Subsequent to the conclave, nearly a dozen countries expressed interest in exchanging learnings and best practices on digital administration of the COVID vaccination program. How do you plan to expand the benefits of ABPMJY? PMJY is catering to a population of 107.4 million families included in the Socio-Economic Caste Census, that is SECC 2011. The scheme has been implemented in 33 states and union territories. States and UTs, in alliance with state health insurance schemes, have further extended the beneficiary base to 145 million families. Since 2021, we have been using the ABPMJY platform to extend healthcare benefits to other categories of beneficiaries. The employee state insurance scheme is now operational through the ABPMJY platform, IT system, hospital network. In 157 districts, benefits under ABPMJY have also been extended to building and construction workers in Bihar, Chandigarh, Nagaland, and Uttar Pradesh. We are in discussions with nodal ministries to cover vulnerable sections like manual scavengers and transgender people. Lastly, I would like to add that financial distress due to the hospitalization is not restricted to poor families alone. Any family not covered under a health insurance scheme will have to confront catastrophic health expenses. Unfortunately, many such non-poor families cannot afford the premiums chargeable for commercial health insurance policies. This section of society is referred to as missing middle and comprises informal sector workers, self-employed, small business owners, etc. NHA is exploring options to extend healthcare protection to the missing middle. A pilot project is being launched wherein insurance providers can use the PMJY platform to cover different population groups. So after this initiative, we shall also see another initiative, that is detailed guidelines and SOPs for testing medical devices. India is preparing these. Next slide, please. The government is preparing detailed guidelines and SOPs for laboratories testing medical devices. These measures are being taken to strengthen the testing infrastructure for licensing medical devices. As of now, state regulators randomly take samples and conduct verification without any compulsory regulations in place on the lines of drugs and pharmaceuticals. The state drug regulator picks the sample with its batch number and conducts verification in its own laboratories. All the states have developed labs so that they are able to take action as and when required. A task force has been set up for the exercise to map the existing labs available for such certification and testing. A meeting was held last month on the measures to be taken towards strengthening testing infrastructure to enable smoother transition to licensing for medical devices under the chairmanship of Secretary Development or Department of Pharmaceuticals. A task force has been constituted to prepare a roadmap for mapping and augmenting the laboratory resources required under the medical device regulation. The committee has to submit its report to the DOP within 2 months. There's a minimum mandatory requirement for the state regulator that every month, how many such samples they have to pick and verify. Once the medical devices regulation comes into place, testing of medical devices will become compulsory. So now this task force is to identify facilities within government and independent ones available in the country for testing of medical devices. These labs could be NABL accredited labs, IIT labs, or National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, that is NIPER labs, NIPER labs. In India, medical devices are a category of almost 5,000 products. Different categories of medical devices may require different kinds of testing infrastructure. The committee will also tell us which category of product, which lab may be able to test. We have brought in multiple stakeholders from Central Drug Standards Control Organization, that is CDSCO, industry, DOP, NIPER, to do this exercise and give its report. According to the CDSCO, from October 1, 2021, manufacturers of category A and B medical devices, that is low-risk devices, were told to come under a compulsory registration scheme up to September 2022. And manufacturers of category C and D medical devices, that is high-risk medical devices, were directed to do so up to September 2023. After the compulsory registration period, these classes will respectively move to the licensing regime. The purpose is to prepare the industry for a smooth transition regulatory regime. The testing has been mandated by the CDSCO as per the norms. Besides random samples also being done. This exercise will create an enabling environment and fill the existing gaps. Another revolutionary phase in environmental management or climate change is India is launching National Green Hydrogen Mission in 2 months. A purchase obligation in fertilizer production and petroleum refining likely to be announced. The Union government plans to launch a comprehensive green hydrogen mission in 2 months to take forward the green hydrogen policy announced in February. The mission is expected to announce a green hydrogen purchase obligation in fertilizer production and petroleum refining, akin to renewable purchase obligation. Noting that the National Green Hydrogen Policy outlined the preparatory measures, what we will have is a full-fledged National Green Hydrogen Mission, hopefully in 2 months. The mission is also expected to list the sector that will have to start using green hydrogen on a voluntary basis and a roadmap for sectors such as fertilizer and petrochemicals to use the green fuel mandatorily. Green hydrogen or green ammonia shall be defined as hydrogen or ammonia produced by way of electrolysis of water using renewable energy, including renewable energy which has been banked and the hydrogen ammonia produced from biomass. The center unveiled the green hydrogen policy, promising cheaper renewable power, fee waiver for interstate power transmission for 25 years for projects commissioned before June 2025, land in renewable energy parks, mega manufacturing zones to help local industries wean themselves off fossil fuels. The policy aimed at promoting green hydrogen and green ammonia also spoke of facilitating the banking or storage of green power, where a green power producer can keep surplus renewable power with an electricity distribution company for up to 30 days. It also envisages building bunkers near ports to store green ammonia for exports. So that is an important change in environmental health and environment management in the country. Amit Kumar, partner and leader, power and utilities mining at PwC India, said, given the stress on developing bunkers near ports, the mission may also put emphasis on exports of green hydrogen. A major component is the storage part. They have mentioned in the policy that the bunkers should be created near the ports, which essentially means that the intent is to export it. So they will have to clearly mention how this export would be done, through green hydrogen or green ammonia or green methanol, in what form it would be done. After the announcement of the National Green Hydrogen Mission by Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi in August 2021, there has been a serious push on both policy and industry on green hydrogen. Industrialists Mukesh Ambani and Gautam Adani have already announced mega green hydrogen projects to decarbonize their business. Several other companies have also announced their foray into the segment. Green hydrogen is generated by breaking down water in an electrolyzer. The hydrogen produced can be combined with nitrogen to make ammonia, avoiding hydrocarbons in the production. Green ammonia is used to store energy and in fertilizer manufacturing. India has set a target of to produce 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030. Over the next decade, government plans to add 175 GW of green hydrogen-based energy. Rohit Ahuja, head of research and outreach at ICRA, said the ambitious plan to boost green hydrogen production and use would succeed only if the cost of green hydrogen comes down, which he said would be possible by facilitating cheaper and mass production of electrolyzers. That's a great initiative with Government of India along with private sector are already on in this project, and which help in carbon emission control as well as environment management. Now, a study published in Lancet showed that only 1/3 have blood sugar under control. Only 1/3 of individuals with known diabetes in India have good control over the disease. A study by the Indian Council of Medical Research and the Madras Diabetic Research Foundation suggested. Published in the Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology on Friday, the study also said that fewer than half have good control of blood pressure and LDL, that is LDL cholesterol, which is a bad cholesterol. And only 7.7% people with diabetes meet all three targets. At least 36% of the population with diabetes achieve good glycemic control. 48.8% achieve good blood pressure control. And 41.5% achieve LDL cholesterol control. The findings, comprising a vast sample of 113,043 people, illustrates the scale of what are considered as non-communicable disease, which now have a growing disease burden and have been linked to unhealthy lifestyles, among other factors. The study was conducted between October 18, 2008 and December 17, 2020, and is the first extensive epidemiological study of participants from across India. Diabetes affects more than 537 million individuals across the globe and is one of the leading causes of death worldwide. The cross-sectional population-based survey of adults aged 20 years and sampled 33,537 urban and 79,506 rural residents presents for the first time the status of diabetes control in the whole of India based on a nationally representative sample of 5,789 individuals with known diabetes. Only 36.9% of those on insulin performed any self-monitoring of blood glucose. The study showed, even though guidelines say that all such individuals should self-monitor their glucose levels regularly. As far as home monitoring is concerned, 16.7% of the population reported using a blood glucose monitor to check their blood sugar. Our results suggest that glycemic, blood pressure, and lipid control remain suboptimal in the Indian population with diabetes. As health is primarily the responsibility of each state in India, the information that our study has provided on inter-regional and interstate variations in the attainment of treatment targets would assist governments in formulating target policies for improving diabetes care delivery as well as in India. Dr. V. Mohan, who is the chairman of the Dr. Mohan's Diabetes Specialty Center and president of Madras Diabetes for Research Foundation, said the organization coordinated the study funded by the ICMR. People must opt for checkups at least once in a year, as diabetes is known to be a silent killer. Fruits and vegetables are not consumed as much as required, with less than 20% of the diabetic population reported consuming 3 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, the study said. The World Health Organization recommends consuming at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Exercise is another major problem among diabetics in India, with a study showing less than 25% of people with diabetes perform moderate to vigorous physical activity. So this is the real evidence that is available, and this needs to be dovetailed into the policy making. Now we look at an article published in the journal Occupational Medicine with art and occupation. Paul Klee traveled to Tunisia with his friends, the painters Meki and Moele. He wrote in his diary, "Art, nature, me, the color has subdued me." He could not imagine how much this declaration of principles would be a harbinger of his life and his artwork in the following years. This was in 1940. Next slide. Klee went through a bittersweet life. His artistic successes were cut short with the victory and coming to power of Nazism in Germany, which forced him to return to Switzerland. His reception was not a warm one, despite being born there, and the process to get his Swiss nationality was painfully delayed until days after his death. In addition to the expatriate situation, a chronic illness that began in 1935-36 is added. Initially looking like measles, the diagnosis ended up being scleroderma, and its most devastating form, the systemic sclerosis. Although its origin is unknown, it might have started or at least worsened due to the contact with heavy metals used in the colors of its solvents. This illness will condition his life in the following years until his death in 1940. Little is known about his medical history because it was lost in a fire and the data had been extracted from his correspondence and from photographic images. There is a discussion about whether it did not affect his hands, although it seems that the increased thickness of the strokes and the dysgraphia supports it. When the disease appeared, his paintings with infantile or primitive brushstrokes were transformed into mature features of introspection and despair. So art and occupation. Art is an occupation, and these artists work with paints which harm their brain, and this is what the evidence is showing. Now, we turn to an important event coming up on 5th of June 2022. That is World Environment Day. Let's look at one video first before we go further. Only One Earth is the topic, is the theme for the World Environment Day 2022. Only one Earth. And Earth is the only planet available to us. And how we are treating it, that's the theme for World Environment Day 2022. very short video which will help you in focusing your attention to an important area which should affect everybody's mind, and because it affects everybody's health, our workers' health also. Could we have the video, please? Yes, now it's playing.
In the universe are billions of galaxies.
In our galaxy are billions of planets.
But there is only one Earth.
For most of our history, humans lived in harmony with nature.
But we have shattered that balance.
Exploiting our planet for products and wealth, creating a climate catastrophe, driving species to extinction,
And polluting our land, seas, and air.
The wave of life is fraying. If it fails, we as a species will fail too.
The science is clear, and time is running out.
We must go from harming our planet to healing it.
We must protect what we have and bring back what we lost to advance to a more sustainable future where everyone can thrive.
Humanity has come together before to prevent environmental catastrophes.
We have helped repair the ozone layer.
We have restored millions of hectares of land and marine ecosystems, protecting thousands of species. And we've banned dangerous pollutants.
Saving countless lives.
Let those victories be the torches that ignite more action and illuminate the path to a world in which we are once again at peace with nature.
In the universe are billions of galaxies. In our galaxy are billions of planets. But there is only one Earth.
Solo un planeta Tierra.
只有一个地球。
केवल एउटै पृथ्वी.
Bara en jord.
Dunia ni moja tu.
We have only one Earth, let's take care of it. That's the theme for World Environment Day, falling on 5th of June, 2022. Let's look at the presentation again. We have only one Earth, let's take care of it. Next slide, please. Climate change, land degradation, deforestation, biodiversity loss are connected, and at the center is a reduced human well-being. This is the interaction between climate change, land use, and biodiversity. Human health and well-being and environmental risks are related. Exposure, political factors, economic factors, geographical factors, and social factors influence the exposure. The World Environment Day 2022 also marks 50 years of the Convention on Environment in Sweden. Again, on 2nd and 3rd of June, 57 countries representatives will be meeting physically in Sweden and also recommitting themselves towards protecting the environment. Here I present to you one video for the meeting that is going to happen on World Environment Day on 2nd and 3rd of June in Sweden. And what are they going to talk about? And the preparations for that meeting on 2nd and 3rd of June as a prelude to the World Environment Day on 5th of June, 2022. Let's look at that video.
Stockholm, Sweden, June 12, 1972.
1,200 official delegates from 113 nations
Arrived today to address the first United Nations Conference on the Human Environment.
one amongst us, whatever our status or circumstance, can remain unaffected.
The lasting message of the Stockholm Conference will be the realization that man's own activities are the principal determinants of his own future.
Stockholm Plus 50 shall be an important event leading up to the World Environment Day on 5th of June. The Stockholm Plus 50 shall be held on 2nd or 3rd of June 2022, and it shall be available to all the people in the world. Just register, go to UN Environment website and register for participating in this meeting online. Let's go and take up another topic for discussion today. ICO statement at 75th World Health Assembly. International Commission on Occupational Health made a statement on 75th World Health Assembly on 27th. Next slide, please. The ICO Secretary General, Dr. Diana Gagliardi, represented ICO at the 75th World Health Assembly, taking place from 22 to 28 May 2022 at the WHO headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. An ICO statement was submitted under the agenda item 15, Human Resources for Health. The ICO statement calls for the inclusion of occupational health and safety services in all health and care facilities to promote the protection of health workers' physical and mental health and well-being. The International Commission on Occupational Health welcomes the inclusion of safe work and occupational health and safety in the Working for Health Action Plan and Global Health and Care Worker Compact. Safe work for health and care workers requires policies, regulations, and services for occupational health and safety in all health and care facilities, and placing worker safety in the center of quality and safe health care. While progress has made on infection prevention and control program, we are concerned that too few facilities have occupational health and safety programs for comprehensive prevention and care for work-related diseases and injuries, and surveillance of workers' physical and mental health and well-being. In some countries, health and care services are excluded from occupational safety and health regulations, employment injury schemes, and social health protection, and this is unacceptable. We stand ready to support the implementation of the action plan and the global compact. Very emphatic and very clear statement by International Commission on Occupational Health at the 75th World Health Assembly in Geneva on 27th of May 2022. Now, in the last, I shall share with you in January 2023 in Constitution Club of India, New Delhi, will be hosting the 73rd Annual National Conference of Indian Association of Occupational Health. Theme is Workplace Health, Well-being, and Environmental Sustainability for Future-Ready Organizations. This is India's flagship project, flagship event, Occupon 2023, in January 2023 at Constitution Club of India, New Delhi. As India's flagship multidisciplinary and cross-sector forum on occupational health and safety, Occupon 2023 will bring together policymakers, thought leaders, industry titans, international experts, management representatives, health, safety, security, environment, wellness, and associate professionals from a wide spectrum of national, regional, and global industry. 100 plus speakers and more than 500 attendees, 200 plus organizations, 50 plus partners. You can register. Early bird registration is open till 31st of May at a reduced rate of, for IUH members, only 7,500 rupees. For non-IUH members, 14,000 rupees. Retired IUH members above 65 years, 3,750 rupees. And professional development course, only 2,500 rupees. And these are inclusive of GST of 18% till 31st May. So go online and register. Previous slide, please. Yes, oil and gas, chemicals, petrochemicals, power, construction, logistics, transportation, fertilizer, pharmaceutical, iron, steel, aluminum, food processing, manufacturing center people, like they should participate in an important event of OccuCon 2023, the 73rd Annual National Conference of Indian Association of Occupational Health, organized by Association of Environment and Occupational Health, Delhi. Next slide, please. So we shall meet again on Saturday, June 20. That is the last Saturday, as we meet every month, June 25, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Thank you so much for your attention and the time given.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Rajiv. I think it was, again, a very lucid overview of the different kind of progress. We began on the no smoking, the World Environment Day. I think the inputs into monkeypox have been really helpful, and each of us would have made a note of how we can educate our people, sometimes even allay the fears and anxieties among the management of what's happening. So thanks a lot. It was definitely a knowledgeable session. Now, in the terms of panelists, I see that Dr. Madhuri has her hand raised up. Dr. Madhuri, do you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. Maybe by error, I've raised the hand, but definitely I'd like to say a few words. Dr. Rajiv Jain, sir, it was a wonderful session, truly very informative on various topics. And we are so lucky and blessed to have you with us. You know, I attend each and every of your ENOC DG Connect conference webinars. It's wonderful. It was a wonderful session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Madhuri. And let me now invite Dr. Tyagaraja. Would you like to share your comments for today's session? Dr. Tyagaraja seems to be on mute. All right. I also note that we have Dr. Shingala and Dr. Dulera with us. Would you like to share any thoughts? Seems like there's an issue coming out of mute. So I think thanks a lot, everybody. Like always, all of this would also be a part of our OccuClav magazine. Dr. Rajiv has emphasized about the upcoming OccuCon 2023 conference. May I request all of you to actually spread the word out. It's time that people register, and it's going to be a fantastic conference going forward. So with that, I wish all of us a happy Saturday evening. Thanks a lot, Dr. Rajiv, for compiling all of these inputs. It makes a huge amount of difference. I don't think there's any other forum by which people can get educated so much. And sometimes I feel that it's almost like a crash course on a monthly basis. None of the newspaper and none of the bulletins give you a crisp summary like what Dr. Rajiv does. And that's the beauty of this session. I think for all of the professionals who are really passionate on the subject, this is not a session to be missed. So thanks a lot for your presence today. I think your presence and the speaker's efforts, as well as his determination, make a difference. Thank you all, everybody. Looking forward to meet you next month. Thank you.
Thank you so much.